He is the guy who's taking on Scott Fitzgerald in the 5th Congressional District race to replace Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner. It covers much of southeastern Wisconsin here, including a lot of the wild counties, so it's a very important congressional district. And the man that is taking on Scott Fitzgerald on the Republican side of the aisle is Cliff DeTemple. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, the coincidence there with that commercial is great.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but here you go.
Oh, it's a great comparison. Here we go.
Well, when Congressman Sensenbrenner announced his retirement, you were among the first to get into this race, but not being a public figure, you sort of got lost in the wash as the rest of us. We important people. Yeah. We were watching this huge field of potential candidates narrow down to Scott Fitzgerald. I thought, who this person's going to run? Is that person going to run? Is that person going to run? All the sort of politicians that were expected. Well, I think a lot of people have been operating under the notion then that Scott Fitzgerald was the only GOP candidate on the ballot next Tuesday. You are as well. So let's start with background, because it's an impressive one, and it's a military one. Also, you have private business experience. Go through the audience what your background is.
Well, I got 33 years in the military reserve. I've been in the Coast Guard Reserve for 33 years. That's been a big chunk of my life is serving in that capacity. I started my own company 18 years ago so that I could have flexibility with the reserve. It was, if I took off time, I was taking it off from my own company. If the government called me on a Friday to report on Monday, it was me. That was on.
Well, because you're an officer in the reserves, right? I think a lot of people consider the reserves. They see it through the prism of, these guys go off and train every couple of weeks. If you're an officer, it's more of a full-time job.
It's almost full-time. You're doing something every day of the week, 7 days a week for the government. There's a big need. After 9/11, things changed in the reserve. With the Coast Guard Reserve, we deal with the hurricanes, with national events, Southwest border ops, all over the world. So there's a lot of things going on. And then my business, it's working in the construction field. I have a business that does measuring. The company's called Turning Point. Measuring systems that the surveyor used to build your house, the police use to map crime and accident scenes, and I have equipment that's used to align the littoral combat ships built in Marinette, Wisconsin.
Really? See, all of that sounds more interesting to me than holding political office. So why are you running?
Why am I running? I have a 12-year-old daughter. I don't want to see her living in a socialist country in a few years. I see it's going that direction. I want to get involved. People have asked me for years, with all my experience working in D.C. and working in different places of the world, why I don't get involved. And I said, well, when Sensenbrenner retires, I was saying that for many years. He did this year. I stepped up and said I would do it. I also want to bring statesmen back to Congress. We don't need to have career politicians, people that want to climb a ladder. We need to get back. What the goal is to represent the people, and then come back. Come back to your job. I want to come back to doing what I was doing before, or come back and help in some other capacity. Back into the Business Chamber of Commerce, helping the governor on some panel or committee. Be a statesman and as more than just a politician that's looking for a job.
Well, and to that point, you say that you're pro-life, you're pro-Constitution, you're pro-term limits. So you're willing to term limit yourself?
Definitely. One of the things that I've seen in politics is the lobbyists they don't want to get hold of somebody that's going to be terming themselves out in a couple of years. They want someone that's going to be here for 20 years because they want their payback. Because some of those lobby bills that the lobbyists want, they take a while to whittle away at Congress and get them in. We need to go out and rotate and get good people rotating through. The next thing term limits does is it sets up for the next guy. When I left the military unit, you were rated when you get to your next unit and how you left your past job. Did the guy behind you, was he succeeding? And that's what we need to do for politics. When you leave that office, how did the next guy do? Did he do better than you did? That's what we need, and I'm hoping that term limits does it. Because if someone knows that you're not going to be there for 20 years, that in 6 years, maybe some other person with some good management experience, some good government experience, can step up to the plate and be prepared.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking with congressional candidate Cliff DeTemple. You also say you'll put Wisconsin first. Trump is putting America first. You'll put Wisconsin first. But what does that mean to you?
What that means is I don't need to go ahead and represent California. I don't need to negotiate a deal for New York. I need to worry about the constituents of Wisconsin. It's the 5th District. We have different needs than everywhere else. That is That's why we have all these representatives. Senators look at the whole state as a whole. I need to look at just this district, the 5th District, and surrounding, because we have different needs than other places. Walking around and talking with people door to door was one of my favorite things about the campaign process. Meeting with people at town halls, they come up with things that I didn't even think of. In areas of Washington County and Dodge County, they're asking for raw milk, and they said, hey, when we were shut down for the pandemic, people could have been buying milk directly from farmers.
Sure.
And this was an important thing that came out of that. Lots of local issues, and some that are national, that do represent the whole United States as a whole.
Mm-hmm. So you got into the race before Scott Fitzgerald did, so it's not like you leapt in later to specifically challenge him. Do you have some issues with Fitz as the leading candidate here? Are there some points of contrast you can draw?
There are definitely differences. We have a lot of similarities. He has got state experience. I am not looking at going for a state office. I'm looking at going for a federal office. I have the experience in Washington, D.C. I've worked major incidents. I worked the situation unit for the BP oil spill in Washington, D.C., reporting to Congress. I did Hurricane Maria relief a few years back, taking relief supplies to the islands. So I saw a lot of money being spent on both of those. After 9/11, I worked developing incident plans and security plans for the Great Lakes region. So those are things that I'm going to have that's going to be an advantage over him. He is going to have the state issue things, but those are some important things. We aren't talking about a state office here. We are talking about a federal office. Other thing is not having being a career politician. I am not tied to a lot of lobbyists. I'm not tied to any special interests. I can go there without their agendas and represent the people that are working in the 5th District.
Well, and you've said you want to bring a business accountability to politics. What does that mean?
Well, if businesses ran like the government, they'd be out of business in a short period of time. Budgets, money. One of the things that I saw in the military, working at different government buildings, was the amount of money being spent at the end of the year. And I call it spend. It's called spend down, where they need to get rid of all of their money in September. As a business owner, I can't get rid of all my money at the end of the year. I got to have it so I can keep running. So I want to work at that spend down practice and eliminate it from government spending, where all that is nonstop delivery trucks to federal buildings in the month of September. So that's a key thing. Being accountable to who your client is. As a representative, your client are your constituents. You got to be representing them. You also need to take their phone calls. And I think that's a big difference between myself and other candidates out there is I understand that if I don't take a phone call from somebody and respond in a timely manner, I don't lose one person, I lose 10. So, most politicians today, they send you your canned email response, and there's usually a donation button at the bottom of it. I don't want to see that in Congress. I want someone that can respond. And I'm looking at, some of the great things that were done in the district in last year. Sensenbrenner had town halls. I think those are outstanding. I want to continue them. I've recently been holding town halls with different groups, the adaptive community in the area. They can't come out to a town hall, so they love being able to talk on the internet, and we can converse that way. But we need to have that communication plan. We need to bring that business accountability where you see what's going on in Congress. You want to know what's being voted on. I ask people, what did Sensenbrenner introduce this year? They don't know, and those are important things for people to realize. Have a dashboard to come in and say, here's my pulse. If you're voting on something, I'd like you to steer this way. Be able to see this, a non-binding way of voting or using the internet and bringing that technology into politics.
We're talking with Cliff DeTemple. You told me yesterday that you've been in or done some work in 18 different countries around the globe, and
yes.
Seeing what the rest of the world is like and seeing the good works being done by Americans around the world really does give a person a new appreciation for this country, doesn't it?
Right. When they think of the military, the first thing they think of is someone with their gun marching down the streets, driving in tanks. That's not the majority of the military. I was in the military in Central America, and I was fixing toilets in orphanages. We were helping out Department of State do things. Those are some things that the military does that help support and keeps America safe. It's not just the soldiers standing at gates and front lines and roads. It is all of the projects that are being done, and I don't think the military gets enough credit for those good projects that are out there. And, they help us get information. They help us put the face of America and represent in those other countries. The other thing is getting to see those other countries. I don't want to be like those congressmen, I call them the congressional vacations, where they need to fly off to see something before they vote on it. I've been to everywhere there's things going on and understand what's going on. You don't get to see a country by flying in for 2 days and flying out. You get to see a country by working with the people locally and working with the militaries in those things over extended periods of time and get the real pulse for what's going on in those areas.
Well, you certainly have a unique set of skills and experience, and I feel like we just scratched the surface here. But thanks for being on today, and good luck on Tuesday.
I really appreciate it. It's an important day, August 11th, and I look forward to that and moving on to November.
All right, thank you very much. That is Cliff DeTemple, the other conservative candidate in the 5th Congressional District race. Your choice will be between him and Scott Fitzgerald next Tuesday. I'll have Fitz on to talk about this race soon. It's a high-profile congressional race, so I decided to have Cliff on. He is a guy with a unique, I think you can tell he's a quality individual, quality guy. And I thought, well, people should know about Cliff DeTemple.